3. Check, baby, 1. It's called the, no, we won't leave. Okay. Maybe. You guys hear me now? Okay, great. I got a deep question for you guys. How many of you in here, quick show of hands, this is important too. You would say, Trent, I really know what I want out of my life. Just be honest. You're like, I do. I know exactly where I want to be. I want to know the kind of life I want to have, the kind of life I want to live. When I die, I know what I want. How many people have that? Okay? Like 14 maybe. How many of you would be honest and say, Trent, I really don't know. I'm just going to be honest. I don't have a clue where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do. Okay? Any single ladies? Hold your hands up. Single guys, look. Be that connection today. We all went, no. Okay. A few years back, actually like 2 years ago, we planned a Disney trip. And if you've ever planned a Disney trip to Disney World, you'll know this. It is literally like, I don't know, 8 months you're doing stuff. You're picking like where you're going to eat, what you're going to do. By the end, I was just like, I can't do this anymore, right? And I love Disney World. It's a great trip. Awesome. Your fast pass, your meals, da-da-da. And about 6 months in, it hit me. I am literally planning more for a Disney World trip than I would ever for my life. Now, some of you could argue, Trent, your life isn't as valuable as that Disney trip. And it's probably not if you look at my life insurance, right? But it was one of those where I'm like, why do we plan so many different things, vacations, all the things that we do, but we never really think through our life? A few weeks ago, in like a Thursday meeting with some key people here, I had them do, and it probably didn't help in the beginning. I told them we were going to have a carnival day, right? So they were really amped, and we got in and we did funeral day, which is just a horrible leader. So I take all the heat for that. But I had everybody literally, I said, I want you to think about, and this sounds so morbid to you guys. You're like, dude, can't we start with something more fun than this? But I want you to think about, and I told them, I said, I want you to think about your obituary. I want you to think about your eulogy when people talk about you when you die. Because one of the most valuable things I did a few years back was reading a book, and the guy he said this, he said, I want you to think about when you die, your spouse, your kids, some of your best friends, some people you work with, some people from your church are all going to talk about you. And here's his point. He said, I want you to think about what do you want them to say about you? What do you want them to say? And he said, now that you know what you want them to say, why don't you live that out every single day? Now, here's why that was powerful for me. I'm a competitor. I like to win, right? If you, I think I told this a long time ago, super fast. When my wife and I were first dating, we went to, because if you're a true player like I am, where do you take your wife? Anyone know? Like one of your first dates? I took her to the Chesapeake Giovanni's, right? Like a real man. So we're in there, and they have this little like ice hockey table. Some of you heard this, but this just shows this is how sick and twisted I am. There's a little girl over there, pink cowboy boots, maybe 5 years old, playing. Doesn't have any money, so she's just got the little whatever it's called, just hitting against the side. So I'm like, I'm going to press my wife, my girlfriend, who is soon to be my wife. I walk up. I'm like, hey, put some money in. Would you like to play? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to. I smoked her. 7-0. I'm not kidding. Like 8 seconds. Just mauled her. I was like, you're terrible. I'm never buying this game again. I went back to sit down. I'm thinking that this girl's going to be impressed, right? She's like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, you beat her relentlessly. I was like, yeah, because when you play to win, right? I don't play for any other reason. So I'm competitive. I want to win. I want to beat you. I like you. We'll be friends. But I still want to beat you, right? I even walked in this morning, and Travis, I'll call him out because he said it to me and I didn't like it. I walked in and he was like, hey, he's always making fun of the shirts I'm wearing. And he was like, that shirt used to be tighter on your arms. Now it's kind of loose, right? So he's saying I'm losing what I've got. So now I want to beat him, right? So all this is how it works. But here's my point with all of this as we get started. This is why it's so important. As I thought about my funeral, and I thought about what I wanted my wife to say and my kids, here was what was so strange to me. It wasn't one thing that I ever accomplished. It wasn't one thing that I did. Like, you remember when Dad, it was truly the things that I wanted to be. Dad was always there for us. My wife could say, my husband was truly faithful for all these years. All these things were things, it wasn't accomplishing. It was actually who I was going to be, my character as a person. And that was very powerful for me. So today, as we get into this very first week, how do we let go of distractions? I want to give you a couple steps. We're going to be in the book of Matthew. We're actually going to start what seems like a Christmas story. We tell it at Christmas a lot. But I want to give you just kind of 3 steps as we look through this story in Matthew chapter 2. So how do we live a life that counts? How do you live a life that counts? How do you live a life that when it's all said and done, you're proud of your life? How do you live a life? Because guess what, guys? Newsflash, you only get one. You only get one shot at this. You don't get two, you don't get three, you don't get a mulligan. So how do we live a life that really counts? I want to give you some steps in the most awkward of places today in this Bible story, in Matthew 2. We're going to start in verse 1. But before we get there, here's what we have to do first. We have to determine what's important. You see, I've learned in my life, and those of you who've lived a while, you know this too, everyone has an opinion for me of what should be important to me, right? They do. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker ones that say God has a plan for your life and everyone else has suggestions or something? It's like literally that's how our lives work. Everyone has a suggestion for how you should live your life. So what you have to do, and this is so critical and most of us never take the time to do it, is we have to say, what direction do I want to go in life? Where am I heading? What's really, really important to me? I don't care if you're a high school student in here this morning. I would tell you, like, oh, I want to go to college, you want to get married. All those things are awesome. Do that. But what's really important to you? When it's all said and done, at the end of your days, what do you say? You know what? That matters to me. It's always going to matter to me. Determine what's important. Verse 1 says this: after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, he was a really not a good dude. Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born king of the Jews? And look what they say. These are wise men who probably would not be Jewish, correct? So these non-Jewish wise men have kind of this amazing thing that happens to them. And here's what I love, verse 3. It says, we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Now, I'm going to challenge you this morning really quick. As you think about what's important in your life, some of you in here would maybe, if I would talk to you and you'd be like, I'm a Jesus follower, Trent. Amen, hallelujah, praise the Lord, washed in the blood. You'd go through the whole spiel. You're in. You're truly in this morning. Some of you are like, I kind of get it, but I struggle with some things. Some of you might be this morning, you're like, I don't. My wife brought me again. I don't like being here. I don't like you, Trent. I don't think what you say is true. Okay, wherever you're at on this spectrum, I'm going to challenge you with something, okay? Because I believe this. And it sounds churchy, but it's not. I truly believe every one of you in here, every human worships something. Now, I'm not saying that you worship God. You may not even believe in God. But every human worships something, all of us. There was a writer who tragically, I think in 2006, committed suicide. He wrote his suicide note to his wife. Horrible, tragic story. He struggled with depression for years, was taking one, started feeling better. Then it made him sick one day. He got off of it, came back, couldn't get on. Horrible, but he's one of what people considered in the 90s and 2000s, one of maybe the greatest writers in the last 100 years. And what's neat to me, he would not claim to be a follower of Jesus. His name was David Foster Wallace. So you expect a church person to say this today, but I thought this was really profound. He spoke at Kenyon College, and at the graduation speech, this was, I think, maybe a year before he actually took his own life. He said this, and I thought, this is so profound from someone who would claim, I don't even believe like any of you in this room. I don't believe like Trent does. But here's what he said at the graduation speech. And I even put it on the screen because I think this is so good. He said, because here's something else that's true. This is how he closed his graduation speech. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there's actually no such thing as atheism. There's no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what we worship. And an outstanding reason for choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it Jesus or Allah, be it Yahweh or the Wiccan mother goddess or the Four Noble Truths, is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. Now, I think that's pretty profound for someone who would be like, I'm not going to claim I even believe in God. But he said, I've learned this in my life. Every person I know worships something. And if you don't worship something bigger than you, if it's smaller than you, it will literally eat you alive. And this is so profound. I know some of you are bored. That's okay. Just let one of these four resonate real quick. This is what he ended with. If you worship money and things, if they're where you tap real meaning in life, you'll never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. How about this one? Some of you ladies or guys in here, if you worship your own body and beauty, you will always feel ugly. And when time and age start showing, how sad is this? You will die a million deaths before they finally plant you. He gives two more. He says, if you worship power, you'll feel weak and afraid, and you'll need ever more power over others to keep fear at bay. And then the last one, if you worship your intellect, being seen as smart, you'll end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out, and so on. Now, the reason I shared that with you, if any of you even caught what I was trying to do, is I think it's pretty profound that someone, even from, say I would be spiritually in this area, he's way far away from me, but he's like, I have learned a few things. And the thing I've noticed is all of us have to worship something. So I would challenge you this morning, worship something that's really important. Worship something even in your life that you feel like really, truly would count. Notice what they said. We saw his star, and when it rose, and we've come to worship him. We're all going to worship something. So my question to you this morning would be, what star are you chasing? What's your true north that you wake up in the morning and that's what drives you to keep going? Is it to please others? Because I can tell you as a former, as still a current people pleaser, it's an awful way to live because everybody's never happy with you, right? Is it to get power? Is it to have more stuff? I know a lot of people who have way more than I'll ever have, and they're like, still feels pretty empty, right? So that's the profound part of what he said. Now, I'm going to share real quick this morning 2 quick stories about my wife. She's not even in here. I'm not even going to get credit for it, right? But I'm going to practice with you guys, and if they're really good at the end, be like, yeah, that's going to get you some brownie points, maybe even a little smooch and some sugar tonight, whatever. You guys can help me decide that. But this is true. My wife is an exceptional human, and literally her family, parents, it's just amazing. She's an amazing person. But she's taught me a few things since we've been married and had children. And I want to share 2 of those things if you're a parent here, especially with younger kids. I think this is so profound. When my son was 5 years old, he played t-ball. And we were ready for his very first practice. I say we were ready. She was ready. I did not care because it's t-ball, right? But I remember his very first practice, and it was like a Tuesday night, and it's at 6 o'clock, and that's where we're supposed to be there. And I get a call because someone had a family emergency. So I either I kind of don't know what to do, so I see what practice, so I end up going to this family. And I go to hang out with them, and it was bad. It wasn't awful bad, but it was kind of serious. Could have waited, maybe, but I go. I get to the practice, and it's like 45 minutes late, and she is not happy, right? She's not happy with me. And I can't get over it because I'm just like, it's a t-ball practice. It wasn't even a game. I'm a good dad, on and on. And she said something that was so profound to me. And I know it hit her hard, and this is what I based all my life with my kids from that point forward. She said, listen, in your line of work, you're always going to have people needing you for something. And she got real serious, and she said, I just don't want you to trade what's urgent for what's ultimate. Think about that. Is that not pretty profound? And even for me as a parent, it hit me hard. It's like, I do. I need to know in my life what's ultimately most important and make sure I'm always chasing that. That was some great advice from a super hot chick. Okay, so tell your friends. Determine what's important. This is the second one. This is important. You got to stay focused, and this is kind of the whole purpose of the message today. You got to learn to stay focused on what's important. You have to do that, okay? Now check this out. Look what it says in verse 9. After they heard the king, they went on their own way. And the star they'd seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. I looked this up. The Magi from the east actually were in what's modern day Iraq, probably Baghdad, Iraq, and somewhere in Iraq, in Babylon at that point. And they traveled to Bethlehem. If you look on a map, that's over 900 miles. So to travel with a caravan or a group of people, you're looking at least 5 or 6 months, maybe more. Now I want you to think about this, because we hear this story in Christmas. What do we see? They see a star, they take 5 steps, there's the baby. Like, well, that was easy, right? It took us 2 minutes to get here. No, it wasn't that at all. It was literally months and months of traveling, following this star. Now, do you not think at some point there, they're like, what's even going on, dude? The main Magi is like, guys, we got to keep going. Like, why? Do we even know what we're following the star for? What are we doing here? It would have been very easy to just get off course or say, I'm not chasing the star anymore. But they didn't. For over a half year, they followed the star. And I thought about this. Once you kind of determine your destination, here's the hardest thing. There will be distractions everywhere. There's a thing called distraction, right? In a little tiny square. that fits in your pocket every single day. Distracted. Now, I didn't want to go dark and heavy today, but I've got to. And this is always fascinating to me. The French, right? The French actually, some of us would be like, oh, it's the French. They're weak. They can't do anything. The French actually came up with some really good ways of torture, right? One, they tortured us with what? Like the whole Europeans were actually really good at torture. They tortured one with soccer, right? Some of you soccer people did not like that. I've been working on that for a while too. Some of you are like, my boy plays soccer, right? No, I'm just kidding. Soccer's great. Keep it up. No, but here's the cool thing. The French came up with this type of torture. I'll show you this picture, okay? Now, not to be gruesome and you can look away. I mean, come on. This is like 1800 Picasso, whatever. This isn't that bad. But the way of torture is pretty rough. So they would take a person and take 4 different directions, tie him to a horse, and go, right? That's a horrible way to die. And they'd stretch them, and then they'd keep stretching until obviously you couldn't stretch anymore. But here's the part why I'm sharing this with you. Do you know what the French called this? I can't say it in French, but you know what this is called? This way of torture was called death by distraction. Now, the reason I share that, if you're anything like me and my wife and my kids, our life feels like this. I feel like I'm being pulled in 4 different directions every single day of my life. And if I don't have and define what's truly important, what's the North Star, what am I seeking? If I don't ever truly determine that, then I'm going to constantly be pulled every which way. I love this quote from Andy Stanley. I love it. I thought it was so good. He said, the things I get distracted by are never as important as the thing I get distracted from. Is that not good? The things I get distracted by are never as important. When I get a text or I'm not a Facebook guy. I'm not saying I've never been on. My wife has it. She's actually the reason I don't have it. She's my Facebook confidant, right? She's like, so I was on Facebook yesterday and this, da-da-da. But here's what I've learned. I would make fun of that. Some of you like, why? I remember the old Twitter. It's like, so I had 2 eggs and some da-da-da for breakfast. I'm like, is your life so sad that you care what someone else ate for breakfast? I don't care what you ate for breakfast. Maybe I'm just a self-centered jerk. But here's what I've learned. I would like to play it off, but I can't. Because every now and then, I'll get bored, and I'll get on, and I'll just click on Facebook. And it's like I look up, and I'm like, where did that hour or 2 go? And I'm like, what just happened with my life? I don't know anything. And I'm not bashing Facebook. Some of you love it. Keep it up. But I'm just saying, for me, it was a huge distraction. Right? It's easy for all of us to get distracted by so many things. Now, if you're just needing to chill or you need your mind just to wander and watch TV, do that. But you know what would be sad for me, and it's happened before? I actually would be doing this, and I've got 2 seniors that possibly in 6 months may not even live in my home anymore. And they're literally talking and telling stories and something that happened that day. And you ready? Checking messages, checking Facebook, scrolling. Like that's really a sad distraction for what's really important in my life. Same for you. So you got to think through what is not define what's important, but you got to stay focused on what's important. And then the last one, and this is where, of course, we're getting churchy, but I think it's so good. We got to listen and allow God to direct. I'll get that word out. Well, I can't do it. Someone else get up here. Just walk me. Just read it on the screen. Direct your path. To direct your path. Now, you're like, I don't know what that means. Let's kind of get into this. Look what it says in verse 12. It says, and having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, these magi returned to their country by another route or route, if you're fancier, right? They transferred. They went a different way. So after they meet Jesus, things change for them. And what happens is they literally have this diversion and they change their path. They go home differently. If you don't get anything else today, I want you to hear this. I hope and pray that today you will go home differently. I pray when you get up, and we're going to pray here in just a little bit, I pray you literally will go home different than the way that you came in. You say, well, what do you mean by that? Here's what's so profound for me as I read about the life of Jesus. Jesus never, ever, ever, he's perfect, that helps, but he never ever he never really got off course with the daily distractions. He didn't, never. They were even like, hey, people were calling him out. You remember last week? They're doing all this horrible stuff. They're trying to catch him in traps. They're always baiting him to say the wrong thing. Never, ever gets off track. He's like, this is my mission. This is what I was called to do. I'm going to finish it. Awesome. But here's what's weird. At the same time, you'll see Jesus will be walking and they're all doing something kind of important. And he literally just leaves them and goes, or someone grabs him and he stops. You're like, wait a minute, Drew, I thought you said he never gets distracted. He didn't. He never got distracted by what was most important. You see, Jesus knew there's a difference between daily distractions and divine disruptions. He knew when people needed him, it mattered. So he would literally drop what he was doing to help people that he cared about, the people who needed him most. I hope today that you will go home a different way. Now, maybe it's just because I think this old lady's cute. I don't know. But this picture, and I want to challenge you today. I want you to see how many people are trying to get a picture of a moment so they can share it with people who didn't get to be part of that moment, probably to make them feel worse about themselves, right? But they want to make sure someone else sees, I'm here, you're not, or and some of you are like, that's not the reason. They maybe want to keep it for life too. But here's what I love most about that. I love the smile on her face. She is a really cute old lady too, cool glasses. But here's what I love. She's just in the moment. This whole group, no one is enjoying the moment except her. So here's how I want to challenge you to go home a different way. I want to challenge you, just like Jesus lived, to be in the moment. Be in the moment. I meet with Matt and another guy by the name of Jimmy Bailey on Tuesday mornings, Berg McDonald's, 6 a.m. every Tuesday, pretty much. And one of the things that they've been talking about lately that's really hit me is just how to be present. In the moment, just be present with that person. That means when you're sharing a meal, you got to be present. I had a lunch with about 10 people this past Thursday, and we went to Cheddar's in Ashland. And I promise you guys, I'm not making this up. One, because my wife just rails on this, but I felt horrible because during the meal I did something that I hate for anyone to do to me. I think it's rude, and you can argue later if you want. But I set my phone out on the table, and the reason was there's a coach that said, have your phone ready. I got a coach calling, he's wanting to possibly talk to your kid, whatever. There's something, but it was kind of important. So it's like, when he calls, I just need you to make sure you answer. So I'm trying to cover for people. I'm like, listen, I've got this call, I've got to be ready, so I'm trying to disclaimer that. But the whole reason I say that to you is because we all know this. You know as well as I do. If I say, hey, I really love Eric to have lunch with you. Any chance we could have lunch at McDonald's Friday? Sure, great. And we get there, and as soon as we walk in, I do this. How you been? Right? We know I'm not in the moment, and neither are you. Be in the moment, especially with the people you care the most about. Be in the moment. Be all in. That's how Jesus operated. So I told you I was going to share two things about Sweet Baby J. The first was I think a great life lesson for all of us, right? Don't ever trade what's urgent for what's ultimate. But then there's one other thing, and I've learned this because she operates way different than me, and this is not how I operate, so I'm trying to learn, but it's a very good way to operate. My wife, raising our kids, had a couple of rules, and the kids don't even know these rules. She doesn't even say them out loud, but I've heard her kind of talk. It's like in her inner like mind how she works. But the first is this, and I've said it before, but it's so profound. She said, especially when our kids are little, she said, I will never tell my kids no. Now, I love you old school. You're like, I tell them no. I tell them no with a belt. I'll tell them no. Yeah, I get it. No. When our kids were being a brat or wanted something in the store they didn't need, we told them no. Her point was, I'll never tell my kid no when they say, hey, Mom, can you help me? Hey, Mom, you want to go outside? Hey, Mom. And when they were little, I watched her, and it was exhausting. And I love that she did it. You know why? Because I didn't have to, right? I remember one time she was like, the kids want to go jump on the trampoline. I'm like, that's your rule. I tell them no all the time, right? I'm like, I want to watch Netflix, whatever. So, but she really, I watched her. Even when she was exhausted from work and tired, she was like, it was a really amazing, but here's the point, I think, she knew what's important to her. She did. She knew one day those would be the moments she would cherish more than anything else she was doing. You see, she defined what was important. That's why it helped. But here's another thing. This is just a little trick of the trade, and I still don't do it well, but she does it. It's so good. She said, before everyone leaves in the morning, when everyone gets home from school or work, or before everyone goes to bed, those are key moments for 5 or 10 minutes that I just want to be, no matter what's going on in my life, I want to be all in for my spouse and my kids. Now, you're like, oh, that's simple. Anyone can do that. I can't. I promise you, I'll get doing something, and the kid's like, hey, Dad, good night. Yeah, whatever. Which one were you? Right? Friends staying online, I don't know what's going on. But it's pretty profound for all of us to realize there's key moments I don't ever want to miss. And those are key moments that's important to other people. And I'll tell you this, it's pretty weird, even to this day. I wish I was better at it. When I get home, if she's home, she's literally standing by the door. One, which makes me feel like I'm super hot, right? Like she's literally standing by the door waiting on me. You know why? Because that's important to her. Now, that doesn't have to be your thing. None of those do. But here's what I want to challenge you to do. Find out and decide what's important in your life, and don't get distracted by all the things that aren't. You see, that's how we truly live, is being in the moment. I wrote this down. This is a quote I've been kind of working on. It's not good, right? The only good quotes I have are the ones I rip off of other people. But nobody lives without distractions. But we have to make sure we're being distracted by the right things. You see, we're all going to have distractions. I just know at the end of the day, if I'm doing this and I stop to do something else, I just want to make sure I'm consciously doing something that I know is equally important or needs to be done. So that's what I want to challenge you guys today. As we get ready to pray, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home a different way. I want this week to be different for you. And as cheesy as this sounds, you're like, oh, Trina, this not even... If you just simply made the decision, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to be more like Jesus. Well, how is that? I'm going to be in the moment. I'm going to be in the moment. When someone's talking to me, when someone's hanging out, I'm going to literally be in the moment with them. I'm not going to be distracted by the millions of things that distract all of us. I want to be in the moment. Decide what's important. Stay focused on what's important. And then while you're kind of chasing those things, also be aware that God may divert your path multiple times throughout the day. There might be someone who comes along, you got all this stuff you need to do, and someone walks up and says, hey, you got a minute? And that might be that exact moment where you're like, okay, God, I'm still going to follow you no matter what, because you're the ultimate star. Does that make sense? Anybody? Okay, nobody. Good. Okay, that was good. But here's what I'm challenging you to do. I pray today, you walk out these doors, you literally go home a different way. And this week, you would be someone that says, you know what, Trent, I'm going to be in the moment. I'm going to be in the moment for my spouse or my boyfriend or my girlfriend. I'm going to be in the moment for my kids. I'm going to be in the moment at work with the people I work with, for my friends. But when I'm with people, I'm going to be all in that moment. And I'm telling you, when you get to the end of your days, those are the things you're going to be thankful that you did. Promise you. Okay? So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to pray. And before we pray, as Aaron said, if you notice the hub, a lot of you did that last week. Very thankful. We want to take about 30 minutes each week just to pray over all your prayer requests. So if you got something going on and you're uncomfortable to share it with us personally, get on there. We want to be praying for you guys. But here's my prayer for you guys. That literally, how many ever people are in this room today, that you would be in the moment this week. That you would be more like Jesus because you're truly in the moment for those people. Not the daily distractions, but the divine disruptions. So if you would, let's pray together for just a second. You just close your eyes. God, as we come before you this morning, I'm so thankful for this group of people. I do pray today. I know the holidays are coming up. I know for a lot of people in this room, they are giddy. They're excited. They love. It's already Christmas for them and the amazing memories they have. I know for some other people, it's really a sad time, a reminder of the people that aren't here. But either way, wherever people are coming from today, I know this. We are distracted. And sadly, God, you know my life. I'm distracted by so many things that aren't important. So I just pray today, like the wise men, we would go home different. Help all of us in this room to go home and be different this week, to be completely in the moment, to truly realize that our presence and being present is one of the most powerful things we can do for those around us. Help us to be more like you. Help us to be someone that never locks eyes with someone that is not incredibly valuable to you, God. Help us to see the value in others and treat them like that. Help us to be in the moment. Jesus, I pray today for this group and people watching online, and maybe there's some people who would say, I don't believe any of this. I still don't. But there might also be some people here this morning, people watching, who would say, you know what? I do feel like God's kind of speaking to me. I feel like God's calling me to take a new step. And maybe that's a step towards following your Son, Jesus. So if that's you, I'm going to ask you to challenge you to do something really simple. Join me in saying a prayer. It sounds something like this, just saying, Jesus, I know the things I worship don't last. Jesus, today, I'm giving my life to you. Forgive me. My life is yours. And here's your prayer. Jesus, thank you for forgiving me of my sin. Now, if you said that prayer this morning, I want you to do something really bold. The Bible tells us that literally every angel in heaven celebrates when one person turns to follow Jesus. If that's you today, do something really bold. If you would, just lift your hand. All we want to do is celebrate with you that amazing step. If you just lift it up, just hold it for just a second. I just want to acknowledge you, and you can put it right back down. Hold it up. Awesome. Awesome. Anybody? Awesome. Jesus, so thankful for the lives you continue to change. Thankful for the baptisms coming up, people taking next steps. But more than anything else, we thank you because you tell us as we follow you, we get to truly live a life that counts. And we only get one. So thank you for showing us the way. We ask these things in your name, and amen. All right, guys. Hey, have a great Sunday. It's cold.